Well, hey, happy birthday, America. Hope you and yours had just an amazing 4th of July yesterday. And we just love you all so much. Hope you're having a good, relaxing weekend wherever you are. And just want to just say we miss you and can't wait to see you next week if you would choose to join us in person. Next weekend is going to be a special weekend. We're going to be doing our first ever baptism service, and that will be at the Hayton home on July 12th. We're going to do it after our service time. And if you'd be interested in getting baptized, we would love to have you join us for that. And if you would like to do so, you can reach out to us, send us an email at connect@cedarbendchurch.com, or you can message us on any social platform if you'd be interested in getting baptized, so that way we can be prepared for you, and just are excited to enjoy that time together as we really take that step as a church. And just can't wait to see you all next week. Hope you have a great 4th of July weekend still here, and we're going to go ahead and join in for worship.
miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. in your hands is nowhere I can hide. I don't even wanna try. I just wanna say that I trust you once again. I know you're faithful, but it's your loving kindness that leads us to repent from the thoughts and ways that separate us. Here I am at your feet again. My heart is open wide. Jesus, come inside. All I am, I'm placing in your hands. There's nowhere I can hide. I don't even wanna try. I just wanna say that I trust you once again. I know you're faithful, but it's your loving kindness that leads us to repent from the thoughts and ways that separate us. Let's start over, God. Come take over, God. I lay it all down. I lay it all down. Let's start over, God. Come take over, God. I lay it all down. I lay it all down. Let's start over, God. Come take over, God. I lay it all down. I lay it all down. Let's start over, God. Come take over, God. I lay it all down. I lay it all down. I just wanna say that I trust you once again. I know you're faithful, but it's your loving kindness that leads us to repent from the thoughts and ways that separate us.
Hey everyone, welcome to Eagle Brook Church. I am so glad that you are joining us. My name is Brandon Gilliam. I'm one of the pastors on the teaching team, and I hope that all of you are enjoying your 4th of July weekend. Today, before I jump into the message, I want to acknowledge and celebrate something that God did last weekend. If you joined us, then you know that our senior pastor, Jason Strand, provided an opportunity for people to make a decision to follow Jesus, and I am thrilled to announce that 250 people made decisions to follow Christ. That is unbelievable. unbelievable. And we at Eagle Brook are thrilled over that number because that number represents individual lives of real people who have been changed by the love and power of Jesus Christ. If you made that decision, we are for you, we celebrate you, and this is your church. Well, hey, today we are jumping into a brand new teaching series called Fake News. And in this series, we're gonna be dealing with and wrestling with some of the lies that we can too easily believe. And we'll be talking about how we can avoid them. Now, the truth is that all of us, whether we like it or not, can fall into a lie. And I am no exception to that. I do it way more than I would like to admit. Just for instance, a few years ago, I bought a bookshelf from IKEA. Now, some of you are ready to stop me right there because you know the lie that I'm talking about. You know the IKEA trap. I fell headfirst into it. Here's how it happened. I got a magazine delivered to my door. In this magazine were pictures. The pictures were beautiful. The living rooms are curated. The families were attractive. And at the centerpiece of all of these pictures was this glorious bookshelf. So my imagination went wild. Where would I put it? In my house. How many leather-bound books would it carry? And it didn't matter that I didn't own any leather-bound books. I would get them if I just had this bookshelf. So I knew I needed to get it. And all of this was working out great. The only snag in my plan was forgetting that if you buy something from IKEA, it comes in 8 billion pieces and you have to put it together by yourself. But no problem, because on the side of the box were the words, easy assembly. And I fell for that lie, hook, line, and sinker, because 2 hours later, I'm standing over an unfinished bookshelf, red in the face, trying not to cuss in front of my kids or lose my salvation in the process. But man, isn't that how lies really work? They give us a picture of the future where we're smarter, we're better off, we have many leather-bound books, but they neglect the work it takes to get there. They give us a promise of the future, but forget the process of what it means to get there. So in this series, we're gonna tackle and confront some of these lies so that we can put our lives together with God's truth. Today, I wanna kick it all off by talking about this lie right here. I can be anything I want to be. Now, when we were growing up, I'm sure most of us had an idea of what we wanted to be when we grew up, right? And some of us might have been encouraged to reach for the stars, to follow our dreams, that if we felt something strong enough, if we wanted something bad enough, that eventually it would be ours. And while all of that sounds really nice, is it true? I mean, I have this vivid memory of when I was 10 years old, about 10, and my sister was graduating from kindergarten, and it was adorable. You know, all of the parents were in this small gymnasium, and the little graduates kind of waddled into place, and once everyone was at their seats, we all sat down, and the lights dimmed because they were gonna show a video. And the first thing we saw in this video was the question, what do you wanna be when you grow up? And the rest of the video was adorable answers from little kindergartners. And they were like, answers that you would expect. You know, there was teacher, there was movie star, there was doctor, but then there was this one kid who had like a deep kind of clarity to his answer. I mean, he wasn't trying to be like anybody else. He knew what he wanted to be and no one could tell him otherwise. He looked straight into the camera and with full-throated confidence said, I wanna be a fire engine. And the whole room erupted, like just complete laughter over everyone. And the thing is, we weren't laughing at this kid. We were laughing at the idea that this kid thought that he could be a fire engine someday. I mean, in order to do that, he would have to fight against his own unique makeup and design. He wasn't put together with gaskets and hoses and electricity. He was put together with a body and a mind and a soul. And while that's kind of a cute example, I wonder how often many of us wrestle with our own unique makeup and design when it comes to our life purpose. How often we get distracted by comparing our achievements or our education or our beauty to someone else and just thinking, why can't we be more like them? How often we get discontent with what we have right now when compared to the future of what might be someday. How often are we left searching for our unique life purpose? You see, a problem with believing that you can be anything you want to be is that sometimes those dreams or those goals or those plans can get in the way of what God is calling you to be right now. Now, there's nothing wrong with dreams and goals and plans. Those are good things that help us along the way. But they can get in the way of God. They can get in the way of what he's calling us to be. Because the thing is he is our creator. He's the one who gave us our design and makeup. And when we see God as the giver and creator of our purpose, then we're able to follow him in whatever direction he leads. Instead of being anything we want to be, we're called to be everything God has designed us to be. But the big question is, man, how do you do that? How do you live into God's design for your life? How are you supposed to know what you're called to be if you're still stuck dealing with the lie of becoming whatever you want to be? Today, from one of Jesus' teachings in the book of Matthew, I want to give you 3 questions. 3 questions that can help you discover who God is calling you to be and how to live out his unique design for your life. And the first question is this: what have I been entrusted with? Now, when Jesus talked about and taught about God's truth, he liked to do it in the form of story. And these stories were called parables. And a parable is when Jesus taught about who God is and his kingdom and his reality and how it works with people in their everyday lives. It gave us practical applications for our lives. Jesus never taught about God so that we would just have more information about him. He always taught about God so that we would know how to live with him and for him. And in Matthew 25, Jesus tells a story about a rich man who was going away on a journey. And it starts like this. Jesus began by saying, "It will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them." Now, as I've wrestled with this parable for the past few weeks, this phrase, entrusted his wealth to them, has stood out in my mind. And part of the reason it has is because, man, there are days when it feels like I shouldn't be entrusted with very much at all. Like, I think I'm a decent guy, like my life is kind of put together, I guess. But man, there are days when, I can't find my glasses because I'm wearing them. There are days when I forget for the life of me what my wife's cell phone number is. There are days when I can't take my family's clothes out of the washer and put them into the dryer without drastically changing their wardrobe. And when all this kind of builds up in me, I begin to wonder, man, do I have what it takes to live a life of purpose? Am I equipped to live a life of purpose? Well, the good news is that the first thing that we learn in Jesus' story is about this rich man who represents God. And we learn that he is a gift giver first. He calls those who serve him and then entrusts his wealth to them. In other words, I've heard it said that God doesn't call the equipped, meaning that God isn't looking for perfect people who are flawless and have nothing wrong with their lives. Instead, God always equips those he calls, which is good news because it means that you and I don't have to be concerned with looking perfect or being flawless. Instead, God is on the lookout for people who respond when he calls them and is willing to work with whatever he entrusts them with. So what have you been entrusted with? I remember being asked that question when I was in college. I was a freshman in college. The president of the university wanted to address the incoming class, and so he sat us all down and he began this speech where he told us that we had a lot to learn. We had a lot to learn about ourselves, a lot to learn from the courses and books we were going to read, a lot to learn about how the real world really works. And he told us if we wanted to learn those things, then we shouldn't spend time focusing on how little we have, how little experience we had, how little knowledge we had, how little money we had. Instead, he said, you should take whatever you've been given and make the most of it. And as college freshmen, he said, all of you have a room. Therefore, you are the CEO of your room. You decide the state and quality of your bed, desk, and dresser every day. And his point was to not overlook what we had been given, no matter how big or how small it is, because it will teach us to work with whatever we've got. See, whatever God has given to you, regardless of its size and your perspective, it is enough to get you started. And I say that because we so often put emphasis on what we don't have when it comes to our life purpose and how that hinders us from becoming whatever we want to be. But what we have to remember is that when God entrusts something to those he calls, it is always more than enough. In your Bible, this story that Jesus tells can be headed as the parable of the bags of gold. And another translation might have it as the parable of the talents. And a talent doesn't refer to someone's special ability here. Instead, a talent refers to a Greek word which means a measurement of weight, which is why some translators use the image of a bag of gold because one, gold is incredibly valuable. has a high monetary price to it, but it's also heavy. Even one bag of gold would have been challenging to carry around. And for this rich man to give bags of gold to his servants, he would have been making his servants into millionaires. And in the same way, God has entrusted something of great value to you. So let me ask you again, what have you been entrusted with? What has God given you to focus on right now? Maybe for some of you, it's your family. Your family needs your focused love and attention. Maybe it's a leadership position that you're in right now where you need to follow God and search after his wisdom and stay humble. Maybe you've been entrusted with wealth or responsibility or influence, or maybe you've been entrusted with a bedroom. Maybe you've been entrusted with a desk. Maybe it's your choices or your habits. Whatever you've been entrusted with, remember, it's not about how much or how little you have. It's about realizing that whatever you have comes from God, and that brings with it a certain accountability and responsibility to do something with it. Which leads me to my second question, to ask yourself to discover your purpose in life. What's my why? What's my why? So Jesus continues the story. There were 3 servants who responded to the rich man. The first servant got 5 bags of gold. The second servant got 2 bags of gold. And the last servant got 1 bag of gold. And after the rich man distributed his wealth, he took off. He left town. And once these servants were given their weight in gold, they got to work. Jesus continues the story as he says this: the man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. And so also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Did you catch that? Dude dug a hole in the ground and put his money in it. I mean, I can't remember the last time when someone gave me anything of value and my first thought was, where's a shovel? You know what I'm saying? But the thing I want to point out here is that before the rich man left town, he never told the servants what to do with his money. He didn't tell them. He called his servants, he entrusted them with his wealth, and then he left. He never told them what to do. And I point that out to you because I think when it comes to our life purpose, we can get really hung up on what we're supposed to do. We get hung up on what we should be doing or what we should have a part of our LinkedIn account or what accolades we should bring up in an interview to boost our hireability. Over and over again, our culture teaches us that the most important thing about us is what we do. So we stress out about what schools to go to or what schools not to go to, or when to get married, or why we shouldn't get married, or why we're not married yet, or what books we should be reading, or who we should be following, or what news articles we should be listening to and reading. And this pressure mounts in our minds and our hearts, and it influences us to do nothing of real value at all. Either our passion spins us off into a million different side distractions, or our pragmatism teaches us and gives us every practical excuse to do nothing at all. See, I think Jesus' point wasn't to show us what to do, but his point was to ask us why we should do anything at all. The motivation behind your purpose is just as important as fulfilling your purpose. Having good intentions might get you started on the right path. It might get you excited and moving in the right direction, but it won't keep you there. In order to stay on that path of purpose, you have to have a really good reason why you'll keep going, why you'll push through, why you won't give up. Later on in Jesus' story, the rich man returns to find out what his servants have been up to and teaches us a lesson about how we have to be careful not to allow our worries, our anxieties, or even our fears to dictate our direction. Because the 2 who doubled their income give it back to their master. And the third has this to say. He says, I knew that you are a hard man, investing where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out, hid your gold in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. The servant said, I was afraid. The guy who buried his gold in the ground, his core motivation, his why was fear. Man, I wonder how often our motivation for why we do anything is because we're afraid of something. See, this servant allowed his fear to make him misunderstand his master. And man, this can happen in our relationship with God. We can start making assumptions about God that make him and create him into being something that he never was in the first place. We can blame God for making our lives too difficult. We can ignore God thinking that he only really matters in church or on the weekends. We can be afraid of God, thinking that no matter what we do, no matter how hard we try, we'll never please him or match his standards. But see, in reality, what we're forgetting is that God is the giver of every good gift. He is the one who is able to make a servant into a millionaire. In other words, he doesn't need me to do anything for him. Like, he's fine on his own. Instead, he wants to be my reason why I do anything at all. So when it comes to your life purpose, what's your why? Are you buying into that feeling of the only thing that makes you important is what you do? And so you work yourself to death. Are your motivations vague? Are they mediocre, spinning you off into a million different directions, not knowing what path you should take anymore? Is fear dictating your decisions in life right now? Well, instead of that, instead of those distractions from your purpose, what if God was your reason why? What if he was the reason why you went into business? Why you went into finance, why you wanted to become a good father or a good mother or a good friend, why God is the reason you would want to do anything at all. It's not about what you do, it's about why you do it. And when God is your reason why, he is able to sustain you on your path of purpose. The third question to ask yourself to discover this purpose in life is this: how am I preparing? Because eventually we have to do something. We have to get going. We have to make some decisions. The end of Jesus' parable is really hard. It's haunting, really. It's haunted Bible experts and pastors for years because of the harsh words from the rich man to his servant. He scolds his servant for not investing his money, for not doing really anything with his money. And then he takes his one bag of gold and gives it to the man who had 5 and doubled his. And then the rich man says this: for whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have, will be taken from them. Now, this sounds harsh because it is. But this is also kind of how life really works. When we take for granted the things that we've been entrusted with, our families, our jobs, our purpose, our health, our direction, our vision, and we don't do the best we can with what we've been given, we can end up losing those things. Those things can begin to lose significance in our life. I remember learning this lesson, or beginning to learn this lesson, right out of high school. Out of high school, I was in a band for 2 years, and we did some touring and some recording, but like we weren't the Beatles, or anything. I was 19 years old, and the guys I was traveling with were in their late 20s and early 30s, and they were good dudes. Like, they just took me under their wing, and they just mentored me, really. They would ask me questions: Brandon, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to get married? And at that point in my life, I had firmly bought into the lie that I could be anything I wanted to be. Today I'm in a band, tomorrow I'll start a business or go to college, and it was just that easy for me. But I wasn't making any moves. I wasn't preparing myself at all. My bandmates noticed this. They noticed that I was mostly just eating Doritos and sleeping on my friends' couches and watching my life go by. And so they would begin to tell me, Brandon, if you don't prepare yourself today, then you won't be ready for what comes tomorrow. You'll lose out on things. They started to tell me on some of the things that they lost out on, relationships that they lost because they took another person for granted, opportunities they lost because they built their life on financial insecurities and debt, life purpose that they lost because they thought they could be something someday, but didn't prepare themselves for it every day. And when I learned that, and as I've learned it over the years, I've discovered that if we don't invest in what we've been given, then we really won't be ready for what comes next. And so whatever that next is for you, whether you want to go to college, or you want to become an expert in your field, or you want to do good in your community, or you want to become a great parent, how are you preparing yourself for that today? What does your preparation look like? See, Jesus' whole parable, it's about preparation. And so is your purpose. Living out your purpose will depend on how well you prepare for it. And see, the problem with becoming whatever you want to be, or the thinking that you can become whatever you want to be, is that it's based on imaginary thinking. It centers on hopes and dreams and forgets about plans. It forgets about progress. It forgets about preparation. And preparation will teach you to invest in what you have now so that you'll be ready for what comes next. In Jesus' story, one of the big reasons why the rich man calls out his servant is because he missed the point. The point isn't to take one bag of gold and to flip it and instantly have 10 bags of gold. Neither is the point to take what you've been given and bury it in the ground and do nothing with it at all because you're afraid that you could do anything of real value in the first place. Instead, it's about taking what you've been given and having enough appreciation to prepare to see it grow. God's purpose in your life, man, it takes years to develop. It takes time. And the more prepared you are, the more ready you will be to live out God's design for your life. So what does your preparation look like now? When was the last time you just took a moment to just take stock of all that God has given you, to be grateful for it? How much perspective do you have to see the areas in your life where you're weak, where you need to grow in order to get to that next level or in order to keep on going? Are you willing to do the work to become a well-rounded friend, a diligent employee, a faithful spouse? Are you prioritizing time with God in the place of prayer and reading scripture? Are you making choices today that are preparing you to become who God is calling you to be tomorrow? Because your preparation will impact your purpose. Friends, discovering your purpose, it's hard. I mean, it's confounded men and women, I don't know, maybe since the beginning of time. But the more I thought about it, the more I think maybe it's supposed to be hard. Maybe it's not supposed to be easy. Maybe we shouldn't hide behind taglines of I can be whatever I want to be, because it begins to sound like an excuse for not being anything at all. Maybe instead of that, we should try to find a purpose that takes time and effort and dedication and reconsideration of our motivations and values. And the problem with becoming whatever we want to be is that it's a lie because it leaves out the process. It leaves out the work. And our purpose is found in the process of going to God to discover what he's entrusted to us and how valuable it really is. Our purpose becomes real when God becomes the motivation and our motivation why we would do anything at all. And we live out our purpose when we prepare for it every day. It's not supposed to be easy. It's just supposed to be true. So friends, don't give in to the lie when it comes to your purpose. Don't give in to the lie of becoming whatever you want to be. Instead, I wonder this week if you would ask yourself these 3 questions. What have I been entrusted with? What's my why? And how am I preparing? What question do you need to focus on right now in your stage of life and in your moment of purpose? And how can God be the one who sustains you on your path toward a purposeful life? Well, friends, let me pray for you. Jesus, thank you so much for your teachings. Thank you so much for how they challenge us to grow. They challenge us to reconsider our values and reconsider why we would do anything and gives us the motivation to keep going. I pray, Lord, for my friends that are struggling with their purpose right now, that you would give them clarity and direction in their life. For those who are living in their purpose, give them endurance for the long haul, God. And may we be a church, Lord, that puts our purpose in your hands because we trust you and we love you. In Christ's name, amen. Well, hey, Eagle Brook, thank you so much for joining us this week. Make sure you join us next week as we tackle the lie of, if I follow Christ, then I won't suffer. It's bound to be a good one. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Well, thanks again for being here with us online this week. And man, what a great message there as we jump into this new series, Fake News. And man, I tell you, there is a lot of fake news out there these days. And so I think we all kind of are working through identifying what is real and what isn't, and what we can really choose to become and what we can't become, right? So just want to say thank you all for being here this morning, and can't wait to see you next week again if you'd be willing to join us. If not, we value you so much just having you be a part of our church here online during this season. And have a great 4th of July weekend here as we wrap things up today, and take care.